welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And obviously, the big news item is coronavirus, but we're going to put that aside for just a second, ladies and gentlemen, and Dr. Lopkin. And let's just touch upon, once again, the Biden controversy. Now, let me just give my little 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Fox obviously is running with it, and things like One America News, they're running with it, all that stuff. Got it. However, I see more. It's not a groundswell, but a little cracks in the dike, so to speak, of traditional media, liberal media, starting to discuss it. And then actually there's a debate in the Democratic constituency of shouldn't this be explored. So I don't know. I do not know the answer, but I see this as getting a little more traction than I once thought.
Yeah, mainstream media has picked up on it. I've seen coverage on ABC, CBS, the broadcast news. Nancy Pelosi has come out and made a statement how she's standing behind Joe Biden.
But she's a political.
Of course, she
is. I know we're talking about Biden, but she's thrown away all sense or pretense of being anything but a partisan hack. I mean, she always was, but she's off the hook now. Her hatred for Trump has taken control of her.
Yeah, no, there's a video you can find online of the press conference that she held where she is going off on one of the reporters for daring to question her.
Yeah, I saw that. She obviously lives in a sheltered life, but that's a subject for another podcast, another edition of Carnivore Bites. But this Biden situation, I think Biden has problems. If we can expand the conversation, he has problems on 2 fronts. I think this, especially with the environment of the new Democratic Party, Me Too movement, I see this as being a bigger and bigger problem. I don't know the ramifications. I don't know if it's a game changer, but I do see it growing in relevancy. And also, it's like Weekend at Bernie's. You don't even see the guy. And I don't know if our listeners have seen the video, or if you've seen it, Dr. Lopkin. It's a video of him. It's about a week ago, and it's his wife actually speaking for him. It's like, whoa, he's like a puppet. It's bad. So address some of those issues I've just brought up.
Yeah, there has been a distinct lack of him being out in front. Other politicians have spoken for him. His wife has spoken for him. There has long been, and we've mentioned this prior, there has long been suspicion that he is suffering from dementia. And, certainly they don't want him going off script and attacking reporters. We've seen videos where he's just lashed out. The Democratic Party has put all of their eggs in the Biden basket. Now,
real quick, because you had a great insight off air and on air. Klobuchar was the one. That would have been. I would say that they picked they got behind the wrong person. And you mentioned a great, reason why there is too many candidates. But Klobuchar, I would give her a 60%, 70% chance of beating Trump.
Oh, absolutely. I think had Amy Klobuchar come out of the primary as the Democratic candidate, I would put her odds at about a 60% victory. She would have beaten Trump.
Yes, I would agree. So now they're stuck with Biden. Do you believe this allegation is true or not?
I do believe it's true.
So do I. I don't know how true, meaning it's kind of a dumb way of putting it. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know what really happened, but there's something to this. Or he would say, if you're not guilty, you would just say, here's the record, here's the excerpt, it's 1992, and here's what happened, and I said to her, get some coffee, and she misconstrued that, and blah, blah, blah.
In his defense, he has stated that nothing happened, and he has asked the Senate to find any reports from that time that would substantiate her claim. Now, the fact of the matter is, reports from 1993 have been archived in some warehouse somewhere, so the odds on them being found are pretty slim. But he did fight back and say he wants to see if there are any records. That
I
being
think most of
said,
the records are actually at the University of Delaware, though.
that's possible, and he has refused to release.
There you go. In terms of his viability, here's what I think. I don't know what's going to happen. No one does with the economy. We'll talk about that in our next little segment on this podcast of Carnivore Bites. But I do believe that in a debate, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I don't think he could even hold. He can't hold up with Morning Joe. How's he going to hold up against Trump? Your thoughts?
He does not debate well. Trump is going to put a lot of pressure on him during a debate, and I don't think he's going to be able to handle it. More than that, I mean, Biden came into this sort of weakened because you have the large contingent of Bernie supporters who are still angry that the party refused to back Bernie. So you have that. There's a percentage of those that will not vote for him. They'll stay home. The sexual assault allegations, you've got people on both sides of the Me Too movement. You've got some people saying that's it. We cannot support him because he's no better than anybody else. And, if there's this assault they're not even looking into. And you've got members of the Me Too movement who said, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and support him anyway. So little by little, the more he talks and the more comes out, the more little constituencies are being chipped away. So you will not have a unified Democratic Party going into the election.
No, you could not. But here's what I see in terms of the electoral process, how it's going to shake out. I believe Trump had a 70% chance of winning 3 months ago. I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows how's this whole thing going to shake out with the coronavirus. No one knows. I think he's taking a gamble. Don't know if it's the right gamble or the wrong gamble, but it's into the bigger issue I'd like to discuss. He's basically saying open up. And if it backfires, I think he's finished. But the real question is, there seems to be a growing chasm between I want to go back to work, and those are a lot of blue-collar people, not all, obviously, people who have barber shops, who have liquor stores, or have whatever, restaurants. Their livelihoods are at stake. I mean, if this thing goes on for 2 months more, they're finished. I don't care what kind of bailout you're getting. It just can't go on forever. So isn't there a growing divide between people that are going to, when you look at your livelihood, it's just the same thing as dying, obviously not as bad, but you're looking at your financial death, your dreams, everything else are dying. You might have just opened up this restaurant or barber shop. Where do you see this thing going? It's getting increasingly more testy, isn't it?
It is getting more testy. And the thing is, it's more serious than people losing their dreams. Right now, and this is actually a statistic from a few weeks ago, I think it's actually gotten worse. 17 million families could not afford to feed themselves. So you're talking about people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And a lot of this has to do with how badly the stimulus was rolled out. The unemployment benefits that the CARES Act added to allowed business owners, contractors, self-employed people to get the $600 a week unemployment benefit. The state, Connecticut, still has not allowed people to apply for that. They haven't sent out a single payment. And other states, I mean, Connecticut is among the worst. They're one of the last ones to get their act together. But you've seen this all over the country where the departments of labor just completely failed to distribute the money. And when that's all you're relying on because you have no income, And if, for a lot of small businesses, they're one or two employees, they're not necessarily going to get those forgivable loans that are going to keep people employed. That money was crucial. And if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, you want to get back to work.
Yes, I would agree. Any thoughts on what do you think a reasonable compromise would be?
Well, I think they're working on that now, and it's got to be a phased rollout. We've got some states that have just opened. A few more are opening up in the next week, and several weeks, but none of them are opening 100%. So restaurants are opening, but only in outdoor areas.
Yes.
Retail is opening, but you're only allowed to have a certain number of people in the store at a time. Masks have to be worn when you're in retail stores, restaurants,
Do you
bars.
think we're doing it too soon or not?
I don't think we're doing it too soon as long as we do it carefully. I mean,
If this thing, oh, go ahead.
the fact of the matter is so many retailers have still been open. Walmart, Target, supermarkets, Home Depot, Lowe's. These are retailers that were considered essential.
Yes.
And they managed to have people come in, get what they need, go out, and you're still seeing things starting to level off. So using the same things we learned at those stores, we can reopen other locations with social distancing, with masks, with disinfectants. And that's something that's so important. We know for 100% fact that UV disinfectants work against the coronavirus. It kills the virus dead on surfaces, in stores. These disinfectant wands, towers, they're all available on Amazon. Anybody can get these. So a place is not going to be a problem. The problem is going to be person to person if you get to people too close or you don't wear the masks.
That's true. How do you think this is working so far for the election that's coming up? Polls show Biden ahead. I think it's really premature. Not just because it's against Trump, but I just think polls had I don't know, against Clinton. I forgot what his name was running against Clinton in '95 or '96. They had him ahead. Obviously, he got lost. He lost in a landslide. But it does show, it does show in key states that that Biden is ahead. How do you think this is playing out? Do you still give Trump a 60% chance?
I do still give Trump a 60% chance. At this point, 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton's polls were much higher than Joe Biden's, and Trump still managed to beat her. And again, let's face it, he didn't beat her by a little. He beat her by a lot. There were a lot of states that she would have had to catch up to be able to get to win. So you're still seeing, regardless of these polls, you're seeing a polarization of America where Biden is going to do amazingly in California, in New York, in the Northeast, in New England.
He'll pile on. Yes, he'll probably win the popular vote, possibly.
Right. He may win the popular vote because there's so much population in those states. However, I think, like Hillary Clinton, he's not going to do well in the middle of the country. Because remember, 4 years ago, Barack Obama was crisscrossing the country telling anybody who would listen that if they vote against Hillary Clinton, they're voting against his legacy.
I remember that well, yeah.
You don't get more of a direct descendant to his legacy than his vice president, Joe Biden. And the middle of America said, no, we do not want that. It's bad for us.
I would agree. It's certainly interesting, and you have to with our live podcast, we have a very interesting guest on Friday, and that should be quite noteworthy, shouldn't it, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, on Friday we'll be talking live with Dr. Julian Ford from UConn Health Center. He's a professor of psychiatry, and he will be talking about the mental health impact that COVID has had, the isolation, the social distancing. What is that done to people's psyches, and how is that affecting depression rates, suicide rates, and how we can help sort of balance that out? So that's live Friday at 4. You can be part of the conversation and listen live at blogtalkradio.com/carnivore radio.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Lopkin. Thanks for our listeners, and we'll be in touch on Friday. Join us.
See you then.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio podcast network. You can catch us every week on carnivoreradio.com, exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.